Men of Reddit, what's your creepy girl story? Before we start with the first story, please hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Number 15. Once, an acquaintance added me on Facebook. When I clicked on her profile, it said she was in a relationship with someone. That someone was a fake account of me with my picture. Number 14. I was in New Orleans watching some street performers go crazy, and a mom came up behind me and fully grabbed both of my cheeks. I was 18 and standing next to both of my parents, and she said, "Hey, you remind me of my son," which is probably one of the weirdest things to say in that moment. Number 13. Girl in my dorm. She had a crush on my roommate. My roommate clearly didn't like it and told her several times. Things got out of hand, and there were times when my roommate would come running back to the room yelling, lock the door," and moments later the girl and her friend would try to come barge in without permission. What's creepy is this next part. Apparently one night we accidentally left our room unlocked, and she decided to sneak in and play /rub our heads. We didn't wake up, but her roommate told us what she did a couple days later. I haven't seen her in about a year, and I'm quite glad. Number 12. I was bored once at a small local festival, and didn't want to be there, so I just got a drink and started walking around aimlessly when I noticed a fire breather. The display was interesting, and she was pretty hot. When she was on break, she went to get a drink, and we started talking. She seemed nice, we had a laugh, her break was up, and she resumed her display, so I left her to it and continued to wander around. 5 minutes later, security was called to her display. Turns out some crazy girl whom I had never met before was following me around the festival and assaulted the fire breather. She had claimed that me and Crazy, were together and the fire breather was trying to break us up. Number 11. I got 2. First one was when I was 15. I was walking past my school and about to cross the road when a trio of drunk women in their 40s or 50s started hassling me about how good I looked, pressing me in against the wall and surrounding me so that I couldn't get out and holding me back while they copped feels. Not a fun experience, especially when you can't even tell people about it or how creeped out it's left you, because as a guy you should somehow be proud when women 3 times your age are grabbing your through your trousers against your will. The other one was about 4 years ago. I was 22 and asked a girl I'd met out. She seemed nice at first. Met her in a little cafe while I was waiting to meet some friends, and we got talking about Pokemon and some other stuff for 20 or 30 minutes before adding each other on Facebook. Only weird thing was that in that time, she told me she'd been raped by her ex. I thought maybe she was just being open about it as a way of dealing with the trauma, so I let it slide and messaged her a bit later to see if she'd be interested in a date. She told me that she already had a boyfriend, but that she'd love to hang out as friends, which was fair enough, so I agreed to that and we met up a few days later. She brought her boyfriend with her, which I expected. I got the sense he wasn't too comfortable with me, which I can understand, but what threw me was she also brought her ex. I can't 100% say it was the same ex she'd mentioned, but he really gave off that vibe with the way he talked and behaved around her. She kept on talking about dead babies and abortions obsessively as well. You couldn't change the subject at all. Creeped me the hell out, so I just sat there with a smile and acted civil, while internally going, please don't kill me, and I haven't spoken to her since. Number 10. I was at a friend's birthday party for her dog, probably was just an excuse to have people over and get drunk, and another friend, let's call her M, was also there. I had known M for a couple of years, but I only really ever see her a couple of times a year. She is very drunk, and also very married. Her husband was also at the same party. At one point in the night, she asked me if I had a girlfriend. I did not. If I was looking for a girlfriend, where I'd been looking for a girlfriend, etc. Then she said that I had been looking in all the wrong places, and that if I wanted a good girl, I should let her know. During this conversation, she also kept trying to grab my hand, and so at one point, I made sure to always be holding a handful of mini pretzels in both of my hands as a sort of excuse to not be able to hold hands. I can't hold hands if I'm holding pretzels. Logic. Then finally she says, I like you. I really like you. I'm like, okay. This repeats for a while until she says, stop saying okay. It makes me feel like you think I'm bullshitting. Then she kept following me around the room and kept trying to make me dance with her until I left. Her husband was pretty much always in the same room as us, no more than a few feet away, while this was all happening. Thought I was crazy and imagining it all until another friend asked me on the same night as we were leaving, was M trying to hit on you? Number 9. I had a friend who went absolutely crazy after her boyfriend broke up with her. Cutting, trying to force him to get back together, getting him kicked out of the group to isolate him only for it to backfire and throw a fit, etc. And that was only freshman year. When he started dating another girl from our group senior year, she pretended to be cool, only to lie to the girl and try and convince her to break up with him, because he was definitely texting her last night. Oh, and also he told her he hated her, that she was ugly, and that he actually loved her, crazy girl, and was only with the new girl to make her jealous. Many other things happened too. Number 8. In elementary school, there was a new Spanish girl who had a crush on me and would literally be nonstop staring at me and following me. Me and my friends tested it. In class, they would look and see she'd be staring at me. In recess, we went to the very far corner of the field and she followed. So I went back to the school wall and she followed. So I told the teachers and they finally got her to stop following me. She disappeared a few days later. Nobody knew where she went. Number 7. During my last year of high school, I would tutor students after school. One day about halfway through the year, a new girl came in and sat next to me. The first thing she said was something along the lines of, "Do you want to see my birth control?" She had an implant in her arm and showed me where it was. She then felt my arm and told me I was hairy. For the rest of the time, she kept prying for personal info like who my friends were and where I lived. I didn't see her in tutoring after that, but one day during lunch, she came up to my table where I was just chatting with my friends and inserted herself into the conversation before leaving randomly. I heard a few days later that she was suspended for either having drugs or a knife in her backpack. Number 6. Met a girl online, we chatted and set up a date. Date goes fine, she's a little weird, a little sheltered but seems nice. Not much chemistry, but I think that can take some time, so we give it another go and have a second date. Confirm I have no interest in a relationship with this girl on the second date, so we talk it out, no hard feelings, let's be friends. Fast forward 1.5 years, I'm in my kitchen with some friends getting ready to go out for my birthday dinner when we hear a knock on the door. I go check and no one is there, but there is a box with my name on it. There is a card and some gifts, which would be nice if this girl had ever been to my house before. I had moved since our 2 dates and still have no idea how she found me. Number 5. I was like 13-14 years old, was playing Guile online, some lame social networking game from like 2002, and met some girl. We hit it off and started chatting over AIM. Definitely did the cringy cybering thing too. Well, eventually she comes clean that she's actually in her late 20s, like 28 or something. Being a horny 14-year-old dude, that didn't bother me one bit. So then we start video chatting and she's like, fully masturbating on camera with me. Again, 14-year-old me is not see an issue with this. Eventually, she starts talking about coming to visit, so we can actually have sex. Again, not seeing the issue beyond the fact that she really was not very attractive, but even still I didn't think she was serious until she emailed me a copy of her flight itinerary. At this point, I panicked and blocked her, deleted my account, and stayed away from the computer for like 6 months, and never heard from her again. Number 4. Not a guy myself, but one I dated had a couple of fun stories. One was a girl he got set up with by friends on a blind date. As they went out to dinner, they passed a jewelry store, and she insisted on going in so they could pick out rings for when they get engaged. He paid for dinner and noped right out. The second one went better until he took her back to her place, where she went to the kitchen, pulled a nice big sharp chef's knife, and told him he was staying the night. He said, "I did what any red-blooded American male would do." Agreed, but said I needed to go to the bathroom, where I promptly crawled out the window and never saw her again. Number 3. This younger girl, who I never even spoke to once in high school, had a crush on me. I got a note from her in my locker asking if I wanted to go out with her. I had no idea of how to get it back to her, so I just wrote no and taped it to my locker. Then she started following me everywhere. I would try to talk to her, but she would just keep walking away, pretending I wasn't talking to her. This goes on for like 2 years. Then I was hanging out by myself one day around the neighborhood, and she comes walking up with 3 guys who wanted to kick my ass for some dumb unrelated stuff. She somehow found out about it and brought them to me. After an embarrassing scene with me diffusing the situation with these angry gentlemen, they leave, and she finally sits down on the curb right next to me and starts flirting. All I could do was just stare at her enormous bangs with a what the F expression until she got embarrassed and left. Number 2. She befriended my younger sister just to get her to ask her for a sleepover. I woke up in the middle of the night with her lying in bed with me. I was 17 years old. She was 13. Number 1. I met a girl online. She seemed normal enough, so we ended up going out for a drink. I found out that night that she actually lived an hour away in a rural town. But whatever. Well, we went out, had a drink, and then went to play pool. We drove over in my vehicle, and when we got to the pool hall, she checked her phone and saw she had a text from her ex-boyfriend. She proceeded to cry incessantly. I was trapped. I didn't know what to do, so I offered to take her back to her car. She said she wasn't sure if she could drive, and she asked if I would take her home. I declined, saying it wouldn't be a good idea because her car was like a mile away. B. She lived an hour away. C. How in the hell did she plan to get to her car the next day? So she agrees for the night to end, all the while apologizing vigorously. The next day, she texts me, apologizes, and offers to buy me lunch. She seemed all right when we were getting to know each other, and I was bored, so I figured what the hell and gave her another shot. She brought her kids to the lunch. When I saw them get out of the car, I texted her and said that it wasn't okay for me to meet them. She became irate and said her sitter canceled at the last minute. Even though the drive was an hour long from her house, she didn't find it important to ask if it would be weird for her kids to come. It was at that point that I stated I was no longer interested. Now for the creepy part. 2 days later, she texted me, but I didn't respond. She kept at it and kept asking if I wanted to go out the next weekend. After multiple texts, I messaged her and said I wasn't interested, and I had plans to take my friend out for her birthday. This resulted in even more irate messaging about how she wasn't comfortable with me going out with other girls and so forth. This resulted in her getting blocked. Turns out she took a guess on where we would go, since there was only one nightclub in the town, and she showed up. I had to tell the birthday girl that I was leaving and to call me when she was ready to go, and I was ruined. Birthday girl got home okay, in case you're wondering. But wait, there's more. A couple of weeks after that, there was an ice storm, and the power had gone out in the area. I ended up going over to a friend's house to hang out since they had a generator. We were playing cards and enjoying ourselves. Suddenly, I get a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Are you all right? I'm really worried," the message read. "I'm fine. Who is this?" I replied. "It's creepy girl," she responded. I ignored it and put my phone down. The next message sent chills down my spine. "I'm really worried. I'm standing outside your house and all the lights are off. Are you sure you're okay?" She had never been to my house, and I had never given her my last name. My final message before blocking her involved not contacting me or I'd call the police. It turns out she was a secretary or some shit for a police department, and she ran my tag to find out where I lived, drove over an hour to my house in the midst of an ice storm, then got a new number all so she could check up on me. And that's all the 15 best stories. If you like more of this, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your similar experience in the comment below. See you in the next video.